is at the heart of what everyone is doing here this week. We all know we need to work together to address these problems and to harmonize global efforts that bridge the gap, because we need to make sure that no one's left behind, and standards and conformity assessment is a way to achieve that. Before we get to questions, I did want to also just highlight something that we've done recently in relation to sustainability. We put out a survey to the general population in a number of markets around the world. We did that globally. We focused on the Americas, in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, including India. And we wanted to ask about people's perspectives and attitudes on sustainability. And actually, having done that survey, it really helps me for this panel session, because I'm able to throw a few statistics out. But we asked about how people think about sustainability and how important it is for them. And there was overwhelming support for sustainable approaches. We asked them also specifically about renewable energy, about what their countries are doing to ensure renewable solutions, and their perspectives of what they can do as individuals to adopt sustainable renewable energy as part of their approach. The survey shows that people care greatly about the environment and about sustainability as a whole. There's a growing awareness and commitment to sustainability across all regions that we surveyed. And the findings really sort of underscore the urgency that people feel in the need for more tangible solutions to achieve a sustainable future. 83% of respondents globally, those people that we surveyed, consider environmental sustainability either important or very important. In some emerging markets, 72% regarded as very important, but interestingly in India that figure rises to a very high 94%. So when the minister at the opening the other day says that sustainability really is at the heart of India's culture, I think he's absolutely right, and some of the statistics we have evidence that. There's a huge amount of support for generating more electricity from renewables, which stands at 80% in the survey sample that we surveyed globally, but then rises to 86% in India. So we can see that we really are actually in the best place to be having this general meeting this year in Delhi. So with that, I'm going to get to some questions, and I'm going to ask a question of all our three panelists here now, with the sense of how we can see or think about standards and conformity assessment as drivers of sustainability. So I just want to ask each of you if you could perhaps share some examples from your work, past or present, and how that has helped to accelerate us towards better outcomes for climate goals and sustainability targets. So perhaps Miyuki, if I could come to you first to maybe pull out an example from what you've been looking at.
Thank you for your question. I'd like to share two concrete samples. First one is carbon footprint with IEC 63372. Carbon footprint means the total amount of GHG emission, especially in carbon dioxide from product. So using this standard, a manufacturer can demonstrate to show the reduction the CO2 emission from the product. And the second one is eco-design with IEC 62430. This horizontal standard can guide manufacturers to integrate environmental consideration to the product. Then the company are encouraged to make products that has more energy efficiency and also long-term lifetime and also easy to use or recycle. So I believe our TC11 standard makes the framework for the manufacturer to contribute to the climate change or circular economy for the urgent trend. That's our TC11 activity. Okay.
Miyuki, thank you. That's a really tangible example of how you've developed and implemented a framework for manufacturers to address carbon emissions. Amazing, thank you. Mary Elizabeth, maybe we can come to you next. I'm going to jump around the chairs here.
Yes, in fact, I'm going to complement the element that Biyoshi come to say, because in fact in IECQ, so the conformity assessment side of IEC, we are working to develop what is needed for the manufacturer, for the industry, for the supply chain, to trust, in fact, carbon footprint, to trust eco-design strategy within the industry. And that is what we do in conformity assessment. So we have launched a new scheme for that within IECQ. We have already issue a statement for carbon footprint for different industry. And what is very important to know when we speak about sustainability and the challenge behind sustainability, there is a big challenge in terms of financial aspect. There is a lot of investment within sustainability, but we need to trust the data. We need to trust what claim manufacturer, supply chain are doing, and we need also to be able to provide the data from one region to another region. In creating and launching conformity assessment within IEC, we have this global approach, and we create this trust with verified statement, verified data. And that is very, very important when we have this kind of very big challenge, very big transition to do, and a lot of financial aspect and risk for the supply chain.
That's great. Thank you so much. I have a feeling we may need to come back to you on this point to dig into a little bit about how we can trust the data better. It seems key. Ashish, I'm sure you have some examples in your work of how standards and conformity assessment can drive us towards better sustainable outcomes.
Sure. Thank you so much for this important question. So I'll start. First of all, I was delighted to know when you share this data about India that is on a higher side towards sustainability in product. And that's why even when we discussed among our peers, families, friends, this is something which always entails the highest level of value regard. Now coming to the examples, I think for us standard is basically, and if I could define in a very layman terms, I think if a person or a consumer knows how to buy a good product, how the second stakeholder, which is the government, to run a good program, and third, the manufacturer to get trust. I think these three components basically define the standard. And I have seen many examples, for example, not only at SC for All, where we worked on Sustainable Development Goal 7, which works on energy access to all, doubling energy efficiency and tripling renewable energy. We have seen the amazing work of IEC and working with the national governments to basically to show how we can actually achieve it. For example, I could say a program in India, which is Ujala, where we have distributed about 380 million LED bulbs. And this is one of the largest program where the LED transformation has happened. I think the standard holds the key driver where basically the consumers of like country get trust. Okay, this is something I know that lamp hours, the illumination, the safety and the saving are going to be critical behind this. Similarly on solar program, if you see there is a program running by the government of India, which is PM Surya Ghar program, which is to basically provide residential solar rooftop program a push. And in the last few months only, we have seen a tremendous sort of application around it. And this is because there is a trust, there is a you can say a knowledge, and customer knows that there is a standardization of product. But I think right now, since we are working in various other domains, like in addition to energy efficiency and demand flexibility, we need to continue this journey where we need more products, more, you can say, work towards. And I think, for example, the example of demand response, demand flexibility, circular economy, I think are going to be the key, because for appliances, we are there, but ultimately there are many other domains where we should work together and actually remain talking about the sustainability which we could achieve through the implementation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I'm hearing three different things, but all interrelated and interconnected. We need frameworks, we need data, we need products. And that example of implementing 380 million LED light bulbs means a lot to a lot of people, I'm sure. And it's great to know that IEC is still connected with light bulbs from the early days. Moving on, perhaps, Miyuki, if I can come back to you in terms of looking at the work of TC 111. Yeah, it's been central in developing standards around the environmental aspects of electrotechnical products. How do you see the standards evolving to meet the growing demands of environmental impact, material circularity, or eco-design?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is a very good point. Many environmental issues also closely related to the environmental regulation. So we try to communicate with many regulator or industry and also academic to ensure our standards comply with the regulation. Also very helpful to the innovation. So this is I believe this is a good approach to promote our standards.
Okay, thank you. Ashish, coming to you now. SE for All works across different sectors to promote universal access to sustainable energy. How do you see the role of standards in helping to bridge the gap between policy ambition and technical implementation?
Yeah, I think this is the most important, one of the most important pillar when we talked about when we discuss about policy to implementation. Because if we talked about, let's say, a simple thing, no manufacturer, if we don't have, let's say, a defined standard, it would be a very challenge for the manufacturers to come into the market and display the product. Similarly, it goes for the financial institutions also. So for example, if there is no standard, financial institution, and I can give you a number of examples in my work, professional life, where I've seen banks, especially if they see, for example, there are standards on renewable, they want to basically give a weight to it, and we see the success of the program. But where, for example, we don't see, there is a challenge behind it. Similarly, I think if we see the success also, success of, let's say, whether it is about LED or maybe solar, it basically belongs to, it could reach to many countries. The standards and the beauty is the standards are simple to adopt. The standards are basically where it talks about localization also. It talks about the environment also. So ultimately, this is a win-win situation. Standard gives ultimately, because the consumers are the key to adopt it, right? The government are the key to drive it, any program. But for example, if I know I have to buy air conditioners, and that is that if the 5-star says, and it's very difficult to explain, let's say, to the masses that what is the ISCR value, or what is the, let's say, basically the bin temperature and all. But it's very simple to define that there is a 5-star which is more efficient, and you can save money with that. This itself, coupled with the standard, is an important proposition, and I think that's why if I talked about specifically India journey also, standard and labeling is one of the critical you can say effort which has, so India in the last year has done about saving of about 50 MTOE, right, out of 900 MTOE of total consumption. So 55 is huge, and one of the most contribution which is about 40% is basically through the standards and labeling. And I think it holds a significant amount of key, and I think but the point is wherever we are, we need more efforts, more midnight oil to burn to actually keep going on this path. Thank you.
So more work across all of that. It'll keep us all busy. And I think your point about simplicity and consumer adoption that go hand in hand, defining the success of standards is really key. Mary Elizabeth, so from a conformity assessment perspective, what are the most effective ways to ensure that sustainability claims are credible and viable?
I think that trust can't be built only on promise. We need to have verification. We need to verify, and we need to have verify evidence on data. Conformity assessment is there for that. And in fact, the idea of conformity assessment is to be able to verify against different standards. And when I say against different standards, can be IEC standard, but also ISO standard, because sustainability is not only for electrotechnical products, but is for all products. So conformity assessment is going to use the different standards, IEC and ISO, in order to check and verify the data. And verify in order that after that, the supply chain can trust this data. And I will say that it's very important that is done globally as IEC conformity assessment system, because don't forget that is a worldwide problem, a worldwide challenge. And if we're starting to do verification nationally, per region, and so on, knowing that the supply chain come across the world, how do you manage to transfer trustworthy data from one region to another region? And also in terms of cost, imagine that we're going to verify for each country the same data in order to trust this data. We're going to put a lot of money on that instead of putting money on the action to reduce. So data are very important, verified data is very important, and international, like we do, collaboration are the way to really give credibility and ensure also a cost efficiency for this transition.
Thank you. So you've built on your earlier point of the need for data that we can trust, combined with international collaboration as being really key in the process. Thank you. So I'd like to sort of move on and talk a little bit about how we scale the implementation and adoption of standards and conformity assessment for future challenges. Maybe we'll stay with you, actually, Mary Elizabeth. So what opportunities do you see for strengthening collaboration between conformity assessment bodies and technical committees to accelerate sustainable innovation? I guess it goes to the point you've made about collaboration, partly.
Sure. Conformity assessment can't do their job if they don't have standards. That's the first thing. And today, I know that technical committee are working on different product category rules in order to be able to provide this standard that we will be able to verify against. And so the collaboration is very important between conformity assessment side and technical committee in order to ensure that the verification will be done with the right technical rules, and also not only with IEC, but also with the ISO. As I explained, conformity assessment for sustainability has to be global. And global is international, but global is also cross-sector. A data for plastic, for materials, is a data that is needed for electrotechnical product, but also for other kind of product and sector.
Okay, great example. Thank you very much. Miyuki, coming to you. What challenges do you encounter when aligning environmental standards with rapidly changing technologies, and how does TC111 deal with that?
Yes, thank you for the question. Indeed, like AI or IoT, very rapidly, speed rapidly. And the risk is the standardization is too late. So to avoid this risk, we try to collaborate with ISO or ITUT to make joint working. Recently, we had made IEC 62430 is joint ISO and IEC double logo, and also material declaration. Material declaration means information exchange during the supply chain. Also, it is not only IEC side and also ISO side. So we had established a joint working with ISO TC207 and made the international standard called IEC ISO 86474. I believe this standard would be very important to the supply chain.
All right, fantastic. So again, great example of collaboration and the need to think across organizations. Yeah. Ashish, lastly, on this point around scaling for future challenges, what are the most pressing challenges in deploying sustainable energy solutions at scale, and how can international standards help overcome them? You must see a lot of challenge in implementation, especially if you're doing millions and millions of projects.
Yes, and I think this is something which I would like to say and share some examples. So first of the key thing, for example, we are talking about, let's say, I can give an example of, let's say, demand response. Okay, so this is successful in US, in Europe, but if I talked about India, we have done since last 10 years a lot of pilots around it. But since there are no standards, right, and not any you can say thing, so ultimately it is giving some sort of a challenge for manufacturers and even the ecosystem to be built around it, right? Now we are working on demand flexibility, which is one of our program as a part of doubling energy efficiency. So last year Maharashtra came with a regulation, one of the largest state in India, and it says that you have to, it prescribes utilities to come with 1.5% of their peak demand through demand flexibility. But since when we talked about products, there are no, you can say, standards around it, so it gives a challenge ultimately for a market to adopt. So right now what we are doing is we are thinking about institution solution rather than a domestic solution. So institution solutions like water pumping, or maybe you can say thermal energy storage or others could, because there we could see some sort of standards. But when we talked about individual consumers, the adoption or maybe doing those solutions seems distant. Similarly, what we see, for example, the procurement is a key enabler, right? Whether it is a public procurement or whether it is a procurement by any state-owned agency, to basically leapfrog maybe if standards are still not there. But even at their end also, we see a lot of challenge, because until we see a buy-in or a standard develop around it, that would be a key. I could give you few examples, for example, of few concerns. Like for example, in India we have about last year, the air conditioners sold were about 14 million in numbers. Similarly, this year about these were the number, and we have a stock of about 55 to 60 million of air conditioners, which is somewhat old. Now this holds a significant amount of potential to replace them and do a replacement program, because it will give a significant amount of peak demand avoidance and many such associated benefits, right? But the point is, if we can have, let's say, some standards on circular economy, where what we could do with the old AC. What similarly we have fans, about 600 million numbers of stock, which is of, let's say, old fans. If we have, let's say, some standard, what we will do with the old fan, there should be a entire process. And I think IEC has worked on it, but I think it's important to be part of that discussion, because here in India, as you were saying, sustainability is the key, but until we have some framework, we have certain things, especially on circular economy, because you can save a lot. When we talked about energy, when we talked about emissions, when we talked about material is a big issue, right, to get, but something on that is greatly going to benefit, I think, the country in many global south country, because this is something is really going to helpful because of the stock which already exists. Thank you.
So at this point in the discussion, you've all raised lots and lots of different areas, both in terms of standards and conformity assessment as drivers of sustainability and what the priorities there are. We heard about frameworks that you have an example of, the need to trust data, and then in terms of scaling up, it's all about global collaboration, a lot of which is happening here at the GM, and I'm sure beyond, but also some really interesting points that you raise around procurement, planning for procurement, and standards for the circular economy that would drive that scalability going forward. So I wonder, as we look at that landscape that you've described, what you believe the next steps are, and what are the priorities for us in moving forward. How do we actually deliver on sustainable goals? I can see you all thinking hard, but I don't know, Miyuki, maybe you want to take that one first?
Yes, exactly. Now, TC111 make many standards related to circular economy, like reused component or recyclability. So I believe these circular economy standards also adapt to the consumer or many stakeholders. And I believe we could contribute to circular economy through our standard. This is my activity. Okay,
thank you. Ashish, your thoughts?
So I think to scale up, I could give some practical example. For example, India has many states. So let's say we have, and it is across, let's say, there is, you have a national level, let's say, easily you can manage, but when we talked about sub-national level, to do monitoring, verification and enforcement, I think is the key, whether the standards product are in the market or they are substandard product also. So I think one of the key challenge and key enabler that will basically help is to create how at the sub-national level this monitoring, verification, enforcement of standards, a standard product could be created. So for example, we see in many of the thing like testing happened, but are these testing are happening as per some thumb rule, which is like, let's say it gives some sort of a trust to the consumer, but also some fear to the manufacturer that, okay, we are maintaining that standard. So I see this is something as a next, and also capacity building and training to the sub-national level state officials, because if they want to get into, let's say there is a standard, there are existing standards, so there are two journey. One is how to implement the existing standards through the strong monitoring, verification, enforcement, and what about the new standard which we can do. But ultimately we need some sort of a framework which could actually help in capacity building and also monitoring, verification, enforcement of the standard. Yeah, thanks.
So very strong overlap with Mary Elizabeth, your area. You're looking at monitoring and verification as a key for moving forward, for concrete next steps. That must be positive for you to hear.
Of course. I think that we speak about a lot of verification of data to create confidence and trust. And I think also one of the main challenge after that is to ensure that the action taken by industry, by supply chain, will also be verified. That means be able to verify the reduction. And that we come back to eco-design, of course, and this part of strategy also for company to reduce the environmental footprint of the product and of the company. And for that, we need to also to set up and to launch what is needed to verify all this kind of plan, the transition plan, the reduction plan, and the eco-design of the product. So it's very important also that we be able to do that, and not only verify data, but also verify the implementation of the reduction plan.
So I think you've just introduced the idea of two-factor authentication for standards, not just for the standard itself, but for the actions that industry take around the standard. That's a really nice concept. I struggle with two-factor authentication myself, so hopefully it's going to be simpler than that. I think what we'd like to do is leave sufficient time for questions from the audience. So if you don't mind, I think we'd like to throw the floor open now to see if there are any questions from anyone here present in the room. I'm sure our panelists would be happy to answer. So if you do have a question, I don't know if we have people handing around mics, but if you do have a question, if you could please just say your name and who your question is directed at, if it's directed at one panelist in particular. So, wondering if we have questions from anyone in the room? Yeah, gentleman here in the front. Do we have microphones? Yeah.
I'm Lobsang from Bhutan. Mine is targeted to the TC chair. You mentioned that the circular standards. Do you still feel that the circular standards, circular economy standards should stand alone, or those for the sustainability, they should be within the product-based standards? And the second is maybe since you are working with the conformity, I'm looking at it, yes, the standards could be very good, very informative, but how do you ensure that those standards are in condemn to what the conformity is? Normally, what happens, the practical examples is our rules, our acts are done by somebody else and implementation is left to the judges. So when it's up to the judge to how you implement that clauses. So I'm asking then, how is this IEC standards really implemented on the ground? So basically it comes to the conformity. So how do you ensure that, as you said that now you are looking at the collaboration, but I thought that maybe during the process of standardization itself, this conformity assessment should, conformity people should be working together closely with the standard preparations. So this is my two questions.
Okay, so I think first half of that question for you, maybe Miyuki.
Thank you for good questions. We are TC111 is a horizontal technical committee, and also the circular economy is a whole problem over the IEC. So our standards like assessment of reuse component or assessment of repair. So these concrete standards will help many TCs how to calculate the reuse component or recycled content. And then these assessment results will help to circulate our material or our component. And then our standard totally contribute to the circular economy. It is our principle. And also, we try to provide a very practical use, how to calculate the component or the recycled materials, and then this standard will help to all the ICTC. It's my opinion. Is it okay?
Mary Elizabeth, do you want to take the next half?
So, in fact, when you are in conformity assessment side of IEC, we are in complete, in fact, discussion with the TC. For example, we have a working group, 14, in IECQ, and within this working group, we have experts from the TC 111, and we also have people from other TC coming to explain, and in order that we implement the standard within the conformity assessment. So it's very important to understand that we're not working in standalone in conformity assessment. We always reach out the technical committee in order to have also their input and to be able to implement and set up the rule for the certification body, for the auditor team, in order that they well understood the standard they're going to evaluate and verify against. So it's very important to understand this kind of, I will say, collaboration and work together between conformity assessment side and technical side. So it's very important. And in fact, when you look at the different system in IEC, you always have this kind of go back forth between the technical committee and the conformity assessment side, because also from the conformity assessment side, when we're going to verify something, when we're going to evaluate something, sometimes we have questions. So we're going to ask. We're going to also to say, okay, that is the way we're going to do that. Is it something that is, I will say, clear, and that's the way of the expert of the technical committee? And sometimes they're going to take this element to also improve the standard part. So it's really something back and forth, and we want to go on that with IEC, but also with ISO. And technical committee of ISO, also we wish them for some question and to work together.
Thank you, Marion. Elizabeth, did that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. It sounds like a really good way of working, collaborative and cooperation back and forth. I'm sure TC and conformity assessment learn a lot from each other in that process. It seems like the best way to develop solutions, and of course the consensus approach is at the heart of everything that the IEC is all about. So there's a great explanation. Do we have any other questions in the room? Yes, we have a gentleman here in the middle. The microphone is coming to you.
My name is Victor Vallevian from the National Committee of Chile. My question is, when we talk about sustainability and we are talking about renewable energies, we are talking about electrical mobility, what we are doing or how we are matching standards and conformity regarding the disposal of solar panels as well as batteries, for instance, in the electrical mobility. Today, most of the countries are promoting, the renewable energy, but very little are looking on how to dispose of this material afterwards. We are seeing a lot of problems today for the future.
Yeah, that's a great question, and indeed, sustainable solutions are only half the problem. And I know from my collaboration with the Global Impact Fund at the IEC that there needs to be much more effort and emphasis put on how to potentially reuse things like batteries. And in fact, the Global Impact Fund has a project which is doing just that. It's breathing new life into second-hand batteries to power schools and other facilities in rural Kenya, in fact, to avoid having to dispose of those things in the first place. So that's one solution, but I'm guessing, Ashish, you've got potentially other solutions or ways to approach this kind of problem.
So in terms of standard, that is also my laundry list that I would like to see that. But in the procurement, what we have tried is basically to put that as a part of a procurement process itself. For example, not specifically on the battery and renewable, but for example, we have tried on, let's say, air conditioning. If there is a value, salvage value of the product, and we could get some green certification of disposal from the manufacturer around it. Similarly on the ceiling fan also, because it will give two benefit. One is to the nature and also a cost reduction to the consumer, which will basically benefit. But in terms of solar as such and battery, I think we are seeing, for example, this issue coming in electric cars or two-wheelers and three-wheelers, that we are seeing this piling up, and for example, this is going to be a huge issue. But in procurement, we tried to basically communicate that how we can start creating a marketplace or maybe creating some sort of a value system out of that. But in terms of standard, this is also one of my you can say key ask or key wish, that if something we could done around it, because that in that case it would be too much easier. It has a system that is very easy to replicate. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Excuse me. I agree with what you mentioned. You know, the second life, either for batteries as well as for the solar panels. But precisely for this type of cases is what we need some conformity assessment standard, because most of the country, at least in our country, we need to work with certified products. And the second-hand solar panel or battery is not anymore complying with the original standard. Therefore, which kind of a standard we are going to apply in order to certify those projects for the rest of the life? And of course, once the product is going to the end, yes, the disposal, that's another story. We also have in our countries a law today which talks about the extended responsibility of manufacturer, which means that if you sell a product, you are obliged to take care of the life end of the product. But my question was more on how we can make work the conformity assessment for this product which has to be used or reused.
Mary Elizabeth?
So, in terms of conformity assessment, today there is not international solution, to be clear. We didn't launch anything concerning this part. Because in fact we are again in a sort of transition. Today, the current situation, we certify product that coming from a factory, a new one. So we certify through testing of the design and control of the factory. When you look at the refurbished product, we can't do control of the factory, and even the testing is difficult. Why? Because in fact we don't have one design. We have a design that has been perhaps modified, changed. So it's not something that we can do with the same tool that we certify a new product. That won't be possible. One of the solutions that we are thinking about and working on it is to say, okay, as we can do like we do before with a new product, look at the process of refurbishment, the process of repair, and certify, in fact, the process, not the product, the process, in order to ensure that a company that is doing the reparation or is doing the refurbishment, and so for the circular economy, is going to use the right data in terms of information, is going to do the right element to correct, to change the battery perhaps, etc., 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 and do also some testing. I will say like a routine testing that we have in factory, for example, in order to ensure the safety of the product. But again, that is a certification of a process not a certification of a product. And I think that for circularity, we will be more on this kind of solution from conformity assessment because, again, we don't have the same model. We have no factory and we have no type design. So we need to think differently.
That seems like a very smart and a very innovative way of dealing with that issue because, as you say, the parameters are different. There's no manufacturer at the start of the process. So, interesting approach. Thank you. Any more questions from anyone in the room? If not, I think we have a hand at the back. Yeah. Connect with the mic. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, good afternoon. Victorino Abejero from Sasso, Saudi Arabia. I'm just looking into the possibility if there is a chance to put all the requirements such as safety, energy efficiency, sustainability, ROHS, EMC in one standard. In this way, it is easier to certify the products. And at the same time, it is one factory that actually needs to comply with all of these requirements. Because what is happening now is there's a separate certification for safety, that there's a need of another certifications for the other requirements. I just don't know, it is a suggestion that maybe it is easier for all of us to put all the requirements in one document. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a nice suggestion. Package everything up all in one. Who would like to take that? Miyuki, maybe?
Okay, thank you very much for good question. Sometimes, trade-off problem occurs if we use flame retardant or ban the flame retardant and this product anymore banned. So I think it is very difficult to combine or gather one standard for safety, environmental, EMC. Maybe at least environmental standard stand alone and also need compliance to the environmental regulation. Maybe there are so many regulations like environmental safety or EMC. So it seems impossible to gather together to comply.
I get the sense that you like the idea, but you're being realistic about the possibilities to implement it. I don't know, Mary Elizabeth, do you have thoughts?
I think that we're speaking a lot about smart standard and to have a different requirement and creative digitalization behind that. My thinking is that in the future, you don't need to combine a standard. What we're going to have is different requirements, and we're going to ask, what are the requirements for my product? And so it will be more a solution through digitalization that really created, I will say, a combination and compilation within one standard. And I think the new technology with the smart standard, with the solutions that we created, with also the use of AI, is something that will help and support this kind of combination without, I will say, recreating our standard or trying to make a compilation of our standards.
I think that's an excellent point. My understanding of how smart solutions and smarter products are being developed is that it'll provide a way to connect up all of the relevant pieces that are linked or should be associated with the standard and its implementation, including regulatory data and other data that can help the implementation of it. So that will probably go to a lot of the things that you've highlighted as needing to be understood around a standard, not just the standard itself. And I think SMART is probably going to help advance that agenda quite significantly. Any last questions? I think we'll take one last question if there is one. If not, then we can probably just wrap up, and we will give you a little bit of time back. We don't need to use the whole 2 hours of this session. So I think, just in summary, we've heard a lot. We've covered a lot of ground. We've had some great questions from the audience. Thank you very much indeed. And I think it's clear that there's a lot to do still to improve and enhance the work that happens across all of the IEC, from standardization and technical committees through to conformity assessment. But there's a lot of thought going into this. Sustainability is not one problem, but many at the same time. And clearly there's a lot of thought that's happening, and we are thinking about the frameworks, how we can trust the data, procurement, and all of the things that have been brought up in discussion today. So I don't know if any of my panelists have any final comment to make, or final message or takeaway that you want to leave the audience with at this point, but I think it's been a great discussion. Thank you very much for joining me here on stage. Anything from any of you? Ashish?
Yeah, I think I must add, it's a great learning while having those questions in the discussion for me personally, because I think I was seeking those answers, but this gives some sort of an agenda or maybe some working for us, because ultimately these questions are unanswered, like what about the solar after 25 years, about battery, about like having all the smart thing. So I think maybe these needs answer, and that's the beauty about this. So maybe we need these discussions to be with some pilot countries who would like to champion this, and I think that could create you can say a great chance of having adopted by other, because this is something which is very, very crucial. Yeah, so I must say thanks.
Crucial for all of society. Yeah, we have a responsibility to carry. So with that, I'm going to thank each and every panelist. Mary Elizabeth, thank you very much. Ashish and Miyuki, it's been great having you here, and thank you for coming today and for asking your questions and for being a great audience. Thank you very much. Thank you.